Okay, so the first question is, how did you become a non-feminist woman?
Well, I feel like it's almost a death by a thousand paper cuts because there's a lot of little things growing up that I noticed that never quite sat well with me because I was raised by a really feminist mother. And things like she never really taught me how to cook or clean. So as I got older, I'm like, when I was younger, I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't have any responsibilities. But as I got older, I said, I don't know how to, take care of my home or do basic things that people know how to do. She said she was afraid I'd turn into some man's slave. So I realized what a disadvantage that put me at, for one. For two, I remember I grew up hearing a lot, oh, men are dogs, men are awful, men are this and that, be careful of them, blah, blah, blah. But I started looking around and realizing that's just not the case. Like most of the good people I was friends with in my life or people who cared for me were men. So that didn't add up and the math didn't math with that. So then I started following this group online. It was like Women's Rights News or something
Hmm.
because somebody had posted a joke from there and I was like, haha, that's funny. I started realizing they weren't joking. This was like some really hateful things they were playing off for laughs, but they were very anti man and very disparaging. And if you didn't agree with their thought process, I mean, a few times they told me they hoped I would get attacked, they hoped I would get raped, all this stuff, because I didn't agree with something like maybe if you're going out partying and you're going to be blackout drunk, bring other people with you. And they're saying, oh no, men should just not attack you, men should not rape you, blah, blah, blah. And I started
And men
realizing that
should
they
not
weren't
rape
quite.
you. Just, yeah.
I'm
And of
sorry.
course, men should not rape you, but it's not a solution. I mean, like, there are so many different compartments to the world. Yeah, sure, men shouldn't rape you, but, we could also talk about another part and say you also can be careful. It shouldn't be like black or white.
One or the other.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm. But
And
yeah, go
it
ahead.
felt very much like that. If you said, because I said, well, here's some steps you can take for safety reasons, and I was told, well, all you're saying is that you hope the next girl gets raped. I said, how? How do you jump to that conclusion? That's
Yeah,
not it at all.
I've had
And
a lot of that as well.
statistically,
I mean,
I'm sorry.
I've had a lot of that as well. If you say one thing, then people assume that you are completely, if you say one thing to stick up here, then you're a Nazi. It's like, from extremes to extremes. It's like, can these both things not exist? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And statistically speaking, it's a very low percentage of men that do male on female attacks
Hmm.
compared to the population of men.
Hmm.
And when I started realizing that we're demonizing 50% of the population for the crimes of a few, it's like that wouldn't fly under any other thing. If I said, well, this group of people, let's say, I'll say Muslims, oh, there's extremists,
Hmm.
so they're all bad. You can't do that. Or if I
Right.
say, like, people who want to come to America, oh, there's some people that are bad, but they're all bad. You know what I mean? You can't
All
just paint
immigrants
everybody
are
with a big
bad,
white
or
brush.
right, right. We speak about this
So,
when we talk about immigrants, when we talk about race, when we talk about LGBTQ, when we talk about all the other groups in society. Everybody can understand that we shouldn't stereotype, that we shouldn't talk down to them, that we should be careful about the language and the way in which we speak about groups. I mean, everybody can understand that with all the other groups, but with men, somehow it's like blank, you know? It's very strange.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. For some reason, it's just perfectly okay to demonize that group of people, and that's just fine. That's what's in right now in society. I shouldn't say in right now. It's been going on for a while.
Yeah,
I'm
and we don't
sorry.
have to worry about our language there. But think it's okay. We can think about the way in which we speak about 50% of the people in the world, and
Exactly.
yeah,
And the more I was talking to them too, the more I was realizing that a lot of this hate that they have and this anger they have is because a handful of people have hurt them. And so now they've made the entire demographic responsible for that.
right. I agree that
So,
it looks like that when I'm in many groups. They all talk about the experiences that they had personally. Men interfered with them, men hurt them, men left them, men did bad things. And I see that that's a problem for them, but they still have to be careful about the way in which they speak about 50% of the population, because that's just what should be normal.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you believe we live in a patriarchy?
In the Western culture, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not. I'm sure they exist, in some countries out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think that patriarchy is the evil they claim it is. There's a lot of good
Mm-hmm.
to be found in patriarchal societies, but this one isn't it. Women can own land, own property, have their own bank accounts, divorce if they want to, vote. They have literally every right as a man.
Right, we have
And
equal
so
rights. I agree.
it almost feels like it's a trigger word or phrase or word, I'm sorry, to get people upset or to get them
Mm-hmm.
wanting to fight. But if you ask in what way women are being oppressed, they have no choice but to go back in history and talk about the
Right.
history of
Or
women
they'll say
oppressed, not what's
societal,
happening now.
or they'll say the society structure benefits men, how they have it easier. But
I It's really dependent though. There's some ways that I think men have things easier, some ways that I know I have it way easier,
right, right. They don't
I
look
tell my
at.
husband all the time, you wouldn't like to have a period, it sucks, but I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't want to shave my face every day to get a job,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Mm-hmm.
just a minor little thing. If you're talking about like even bigger, I don't think it's geared that way. I think women are definitely the more privileged
Mm-hmm.
group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think men are really waking up to that and getting tired of it. And you're starting to see society fall apart at the seams little by little,
Right.
chip down.
Yeah, because men would end up feeling ignored and misunderstood, and because the feminists are saying that their life is easier or easier, and it seems bizarre. I mean, how would they? And they're not invited to the conversation because they're saying we think your life is easier, but we don't even want to talk to you about it. So we're gonna form a group called Feminism about women's issues, but we're gonna say that it's about equality and we're talking about all issues. So you can have your own group. We have our own group. And it's about women's issues because we are disadvantaged, but we don't want to hear from you. And it's a bit like, well, I mean, if you're going to say you're disadvantaged, just at least listen to the other side. At least listen to, the problems that men say they have. Yeah.
Exactly. I think also, and maybe this is the advantage I have of having a feminist mother, is I've never been made to feel like there's nothing I can't, or there's things I can't do.
Right.
So maybe I don't relate
I
because
didn't
I do
have
try to hear
I didn't
both
have a
sides of.
feminist mother, but I also never was made to feel that I didn't have choice. I
Oh
didn't.
well, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. But I hear a lot of people that complain about it. They said they were raised with their parents telling them they weren't going to be good enough or they weren't going to be able to. And
Right. Some
it's
I've
really a mental thing at this point because they've gotten it in their head. When in reality, nobody's ever tried to stop me from doing anything because I'm a woman, and I don't think that really exists on a wide scale anymore. They're like outliners, sure, but I don't think that's a problem anymore in our current society.
Right. I sometimes I've seen people complain like if they grew up religious and stuff that the religious values push them into like traditional things. I've seen that on the internet, but I haven't. I really feel like society has told women that they can do whatever they want. Of- You know,
Oh,
there are some constraints, of course, that come from historical norms and traditional gender roles and so on. There are some constraints, but in general, I think women do have quite a lot of freedom. And even though we might not have absolute freedom with respect to, of course, there are some ways in which society pushes women this way and men. I mean, we have more freedom than men. So if we're gonna say this is a comparative thing, I don't think if we're gonna say it's about equality, then there's no issue. Yes, there are issues. Okay, we still probably need some more freedom to choose anything, but men definitely need that freedom. They don't have it at all. So I don't know. The next question is, what are your thoughts on traditional gender roles?
I think they serve an important purpose. I think they've been demonized by society for too long
Mm-hmm.
because there is a reason that women are more inclined to be good at certain things than men. I'm sorry, somebody just drove by, but there's a reason why these roles exist. And when we try to say they don't need to exist, I mean, you see what's happening now. The kids are being raised by strangers, and the women are working so hard. Women have been never been more unhappy, and you look at all the people taking antidepressants now, and all the people having all these troubles. It's because we've abandoned the things that kept our society moving smoothly. And of course, they always cite flaws, and they're like, "Oh, well, women used to be beaten by their husband; they couldn't divorce, and yada yada." But nowadays, we don't have that. So, what's the excuse now for us not to take better care of our families and take and take care of our husbands? That's seen as like a bad thing about, oh, you want to take
Yeah.
care of your husband. Even just people posting online, you'll see them posting, "I made my husband's lunch for his work because he's going to work," and they're
Hmm.
like, "Can't he make his own lunch? Doesn't he have hands?" Well, yeah, but he's working to bring money into my home. I'm going to make his life easier.
Right.
And it's not a lesser or more than, because it's every bit as important, because one can't function without the other. If I'm not taking care of the kids, taking care of the household, he's going to be distracted with all the other things he has to do once he gets home. So he's not going to be working his best job or getting promoted or doing the things he needs to advance himself. And vice versa. If he's not bringing in that money to keep the bills and the roof over our head, I'm not going to be able to take care of my kids the way I'd like to. I'll have to go out and work too. And,
Right.
it takes both sides to really make it work, because working
Right.
women, a lot of them have to. They don't have a choice now. I'm very blessed that I live in a three-generation household right now. So
Mm.
it's a lot easier for me to manage it. But um, yeah, I think it's made a big difference. I mean, my children are very advanced for their age. My oldest just got to skip a grade. I've
Hmm.
been with them since day one, working with them, and they go to a nice local private school. And
Right.
I,
I
I really
totally
couldn't
agree. There are
blame
so
their.
many advantages, but
I'm sorry.
I totally agree. There's so many advantages to being able to stay at home with your kids and traditional gender roles. Yet we completely demonize it and say that it's abusive, it's restrictive, it's terrible for women. And it's like, actually it gives women space to be a bit more relaxed and to take care of their kids, and the kids benefit. And no one is able to point out that kids benefit from this, and therefore society benefits. Your children are going to go out into the world and become doctors and lawyers or whatever. Society will benefit from the fact that you had time to give your children a bit more of you. And I don't mean that to say anything bad about women who work. If you want to work. Working is not a problem. Working is great. Do what you want. But there's no reason to demonize or look down or look back at traditional gender roles and say they were awful, because they had benefits. And if you're in a position today where you can do that, and you can mitigate all of the minor problems that may have come with it, then it is good. I am also a stay at home mom, by the way. And I think that it is important to spend time with your children. And it is important to, the role of a stay at home mom is, like you said, is complementary. The man and the woman work together, they build up something together. And that was the whole idea of marriage. That's why it was something that was meant to last for a long time, not to just end and so that was the idea. I mean, it's not something bad. It's just, it's a way of life, and it's totally valid and normal. And I don't think it's very progressive to knock it down. Not everyone needs to do it, but we can we can do it and say that it has benefits and it's okay. Uh,
Absolutely. And I'm 100%. If a woman doesn't want to have children, doesn't want to get married, that's her choice. Good for
mm-hmm.
her.
Yeah,
But it feels like they say, "Oh, we should have a choice. We should have a choice," while
they
knocking
didn't
the
give
other choice. Or,
exactly. They
I've been
feminists.
called a slave, a hive mind, a
Mm-hmm.
sheep,
Mm-hmm. You're in a toxic
a
relationship.
welcome mat.
When he leaves you, you'll be singing another tune. He's gonna leave you for a 19-year-old. It's abusive, it's toxic. You leave yourself open to financial abuse. What happens when he changes his mind? What happens? You understand? And it's like, okay, yeah, if you don't want to get married, or if you want to work and be independent in your relationship, that's fine. That makes sense, and I'm happy for you. However, to say that other people who make other choices, which also has benefits, are totally not because of their choice, this is it is unfair, and they don't look at the points that are positive about traditional relationships. They only look at
Exactly.
the potential downfalls, which are all just basically the relationship might end, which is true because people get divorced a lot. But yeah, you know.
And that's the thing too, is I think our society thinks things are very replaceable.
Hmm.
So people that do get married, they have a higher rate of divorce lately, because they think things aren't perfect. It's time to leave. I mean, my marriage has been very far from perfect. I mean, we're near our 15-year mark,
Mm-hmm.
and we have had a lot of problems and a lot of, but that's just it. You choose somebody that you trust to
Mm-hmm.
work through these problems together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's never going to be Disney fairy tale perfect
Right.
marriage, because that's not, I mean, he's a human being, I'm a human being. We both have our flaws. We're going to argue, we're going to disagree, we're going to have our problems.
Right.
But
But
at the
then
end of the day, we have the same goal. We want to keep our family together, keep it strong, and have a good relationship. So we have to dedicate that time to each other to
to
keep the
work on it. Right.
communication going, keep on the same page with our children, keep on running the
But
household,
the
you
thing
know.
is that the culture now, it like trends into this sort of independent. Everyone should be independent, and I think when you are independent, then of course you're more likely to break up because you're independent. You don't need the person at all, so you don't even have to think about that part of it. And I mean that might sound sad, but I mean it's true that at some point, it's why I think maybe I always say in my marriage I'm very happy and so on and so on, but I would say thank goodness for our kids, because I think if we didn't have kids, we wouldn't have made it so far. And it's great that we made it so far. But there were times when we argued to argue so much that it's like, staying for the kids, you know. And
Oh, absolutely. I say
yeah,
all the time, and I don't use this as advice for people, but
yeah,
in my case, we fought a lot more before we had kids, and having kids really gave us a common goal. And he
yeah,
wasn't quite as dedicated to earning or providing until he had kids, and it was a wake up call. And I wasn't as good at like being, in my feminine until I had kids. I really didn't even think I wanted kids until, we were like, oh, okay, I've graduated college, which that's a whole other baseball game. I wish I hadn't gone to college in the first place, but we won't go down that road. But I graduated college. I said, we're getting up there in age. If we're going to do it, we need to do it. And then we found out we were having our son, and I was terrified because all my life I've also heard the feminist thing about, oh, childbirth is the most painful thing you could do, and it's such a toll on the woman, and all this scary nonsense. And then once I had him, I was like, was that it? Was
hmm
that what the fuss was about?
hmm
It wasn't. I'm not gonna say it was no big deal, but it was not the scary thing everyone made it out to be. And I think that's another aspect. Feminism wants to scare you from being mothers
they
and
really don't
wives.
like, and they don't cater for how motherhood works into the whole thing, because there are really a lot of aspects of motherhood that are not being considered when we talk about feminism and women. I suppose it's
Yes.
because feminism is led by people who either don't have kids or have very few kids. And so I think motherhood is really not catered for within the whole realm of feminism. And that's really sad, because they say that they're speaking for women, that they are the voice of women, yet they don't even consider motherhood. And motherhood is a very basic thing that is, of course, linked to being a woman. This is something that most women throughout all of history have done, but they don't consider, what it is to be a mother at all. And well, not at all, but they don't consider what it is to be a mother very much within feminist realms. It's all about championing the women who want to be childless, who want to be, who, you know what I mean? And while that's great, I do agree with championing women who step outside of the old traditional mold. That is important. But we also need to leave space to champion the people who are mothers. And I think this is why, feminists should support, if they really wanted to be for women, they should support like trad wives and traditional mothers and the mothers who have many children. Yet every time you're on YouTube, I see they come out against like Ballerina Farm and against these people and say, oh, they're terrible, they're spreading a lie, this is not how it is. And it's like, no, this is also an aspect of femininity and womanhood. To be a mother, to produce children, it is an aspect of womanhood. How can you not see that? I mean, it's really bizarre.
And it's weird too, because it's like the narrative seems to be women are oppressed, but we're all so powerful. But
Yeah,
everyone's trying to keep us down, but we're also girl bosses. And
right.
oh, motherhood is a beautiful thing, but not if you're doing it this way.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Motherhood
it just,
motherhood is great because we're so powerful and we can have children, vaginas, woohoo, yeah. But yeah, don't have too many kids, and definitely don't depend on a man, you know.
oh yeah.
you know.
And it's unfortunate because statistics show that children from fatherless homes are at a higher risk in so many different areas. And so to run off the men from the home just feels like you're setting not only yourself, but your children up to fail. And then there's women who weaponize it. They don't even let their, you know, exes come see the children unless they're jumping through every hoop and court ordered and paying out, you know, pay out, pay out, pay out. Where's my money? You know, kind of attitude. And it's sad because these children need relationships with their fathers just as much as they need it with their mothers. You know.
And feminists close an eye to those things. They pretend that this is not a problem. They don't like look at, you know, they don't look at any of those things. And then they claim to be the voice of women. That's the thing that annoys me the most, because I mean, I can understand if you as a woman feel like that, but how can you say that that is the voice of women? I mean, this is a voice of you. This is a voice of you who is upset with men and who doesn't, you know, care about men and who doesn't care about family. Okay, that exists, but it's not the voice of women. There must be women in society who care about, you know, family and men and so on. Yeah. What are your thoughts on MRAs?
I'm sorry, and what's that?
Men's rights activists. What are your thoughts on men's rights activists?
Oh, I'm sorry, MRA. Yeah. I was involved with some groups with them, and I might still be following them on Facebook. I think there's a lot that, you know, if you want to talk about things being uneven, like women don't have to sign up for the draft and or to be able to vote, or you know, we have a lot of ways where we're more privileged. I understand why they think it's unfair, especially when it comes to family court. I've seen so many men just completely deprived of their rights to their children. And so I understand its need to exist. I don't think the MRAs are the ones that are super scary. There's a lot of people say, "Oh no, they're too extreme" or whatever. And even some of the MGTOWs can be pretty okay people too. You know, they just don't want to be bothered with women. But unfortunately, because of the climate we set as a society by letting women continuously disparage men. I mean, even in the media, you see the men being the bumbling idiots in the commercials, and the women have all the answers, or the men are always screwing up, and the women look like angels. So it's like on every level of society, we're just constantly dogging men. It's no wonder that there will be some who go to the extreme, and they're like, we just want nothing to do with women. It's not worth the trouble. You know, get your passports, you know, whatever else you see them speaking about. And it's like, is it insulting as a woman who isn't like that? To a degree, but I already have my husband, so it doesn't affect me personally. But it's sad to see it happening in general.
Yeah.
But I can't fault them for it because it's gotten so bad. It's like that's almost the only act of rebellion they have left, and it's really unfortunate. Women seem to silence men's opinions and thoughts, and they, you know, if they're talking about, let's say, sexual assault, and a man says, "Well, I was sexually assaulted by a woman," they either get laughed at, or even other dudes are like, "Oh, I wish I had been that lucky," and it's just really unfortunate. You know, you never say that to a woman talking about her assault. You know, "I wish I'd been that lucky." It's just, it's really sad and unfortunate. And I've never had a problem with any MRAs personally. I have many friends who are. I support much of what they do. The only time I've ever butt heads is the circumcision topic because I'm Jewish, so obviously that's a cultural thing for us. But for them, you know, I understand why people would be upset because it's, you know, their body, and it's a lot of things that I feel like there's been a frustration building for a long time, and it's only right.
I understand their frustration, but I have to admit I get offended. So they say things that do offend me. I do get offended. I don't know. Maybe I'm just sensitive or whatever, but I get offended. So, but I understand that they're frustrated and they have no. I understand that society is mean to them, and there is no recourse. There's no. They have no way to speak out. It's really it is But I do get offended because they're mean, in my opinion. So
some are. I won't say all. Like I said, I have some that are perfectly wonderful gentlemen, and we have delightful conversations. And then there's some that have just been so scorched that they're as bad as the feminists that are like, all women are bad, all women are, you know, they'll say all Western women. And it's like,
Yeah.
There's enough that I see why they feel that way, but it's if you're to the point that you're saying all anything, you're already taking it too far because there's no case of all this, all that. I mean, I've even met, believe it or not, some reasonable feminists. I will never be one.
Right.
But there's some out there that are okay, so you can't really say all of anybody.
Right.
And
yeah, we have to not judge
unfortunately,
people by labels. We have to allow people to label themselves without judging them. Like, you can't just say just because someone is a feminist or anti-feminist that you absolutely hate them and or that they have absolutely terrible views. You have to listen to people first, you know, and understand like where they're coming from, why they you know. This is important. I disagree with feminists completely on a fundamental level because they tend to believe that women are oppressed by society and men. That just, to me, is there's no sense in this. Women have issues for sure, and they've faced trials, you know, but men have as well. It's, to me, both have faced issues, both have faced trials. Neither is oppressed by women aren't oppressed by society. I could see that men could claim to be oppressed by society in that, yeah, they have issues with society, but I don't see that women are. Yeah.
As far as what you were saying about, you know, they say offensive things, I've noticed that a lot of people who say offensive things are coming from a place of pain or hurt, and it's helped a lot with dealing with not taking it as personally. Because I know that these people need some kind of help. You know, it's like I same with the feminists when they get all nutsy. It's like, you know, somebody's probably hurt them. They need some therapy. Or maybe they have a lot of piled on daddy issues and they need to solve them, unresolved childhood trauma, what have you, that makes them so mean and hateful. And it's kind of the same when I see men just dogging all women. I almost just feel bad for them more than anything because
I have
they've
thought,
just been through something.
I've thought this a lot in feminist circles as well. Yeah. Sometimes you see feminists be so mean and stuff like this, and then I'm like, actually, this person is just super hurt, and there's nothing I could say to them that, you know, would be constructive. They have to come to a place where they're not hurt, and I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how they will get there, but you know, but it's still not an excuse, in my opinion. I mean, for them, it's an excuse for them to be mean. That's fine, but it's not an excuse for the whole doctrine of feminism and the whole like societal acceptance of this idea that men are somehow oppressing women, or that the structures of society are inherently oppressive towards women specifically. I find this to be still such an odd analysis of society that, you know, and I understand like that women have faced issues, you know, in society, that women you know, have faced issues with childbirth and stuff like this historically and so on. You know, okay, I get it, but I don't think the structure of society was ever meant to be mean to women. I think the conditions were worse in the past, and so yeah, it went that way, you know.
Well, the thing a lot of people forget is that, you know, the human condition has a lot of mean people in it, and no matter if it's a patriarchy or matriarchy, there's always going to be people who abuse power.
Right.
There's always going to be a man who takes advantage of a woman in those past days, and there'll be women who absolutely take advantage of men in the current day. And unfortunately, that's just because you're never going to find a group of people that are completely wholesome or completely good. You just have to look for the good individuals, you know, and enough bad individuals collective together can make a whole movement, you know.
Right. So okay. And what are your thoughts on intersectionality?
That's a rough one for me. I was trying to explain to my husband earlier because he was like, what does that mean? Because we were watching some of the other interviews, and I was explaining that if everyone branched themselves off only on their, like, let's say, I'm a conservative, but I don't believe in guns. This conservative over here believes there should be no abortion. But we have agree on that, but we have different religions and different other pass points, but that's where we intersect. And I said, if every movement kicked out people that didn't align perfectly, there'd be no movements, you know, because nobody's going to fit into a cookie cutter. But I feel like at this point, it's almost being abused. Like, we have to stand together, even if you absolutely don't believe in this thing that I believe in. We have to stand together. Or it's never going to change. And it's a lot of fear mongering. I noticed when people use the buzzword. I think it had good intentions, but I think it's been abused.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I agree, 100%. I think it had good intentions. I totally understand the theory and intent behind the concept of intersectionality. Different people face different problems. Some have more privilege than others. We're all there. I'm there with you. I get it. I agree. Right? But I do think that feminists and people in general have abused the concept. And I've seen it be abused in the internet. And I feel like even though these things may be true, it doesn't give you the right to judge individuals, and it doesn't give you the right to make people feel bad about the groups that they happen to belong to. All of the groups that people belong to, they belong to by chance. I did not choose to be black. Somebody did not choose to be white. I did not choose to be a woman. I did not choose to be heterosexual. I did not choose whatever may be my group. So it is by chance. So you cannot use someone's group to put them down, to make them feel bad, to it's abuse. There's no, I don't know, to me it is abuse. It is an abusive, weird, strange thing to do. I don't have a problem with you analyzing society and saying that on an analytical level, these groups exist, and if you belong to a majority group, you tend to have life easier because you fit in and you didn't face this and this problem. If you belong to this group, you tend to have this and this problem. No problems. You can do that and you can write your papers and you can, but just don't reach individuals, don't reach to normal people, and then start to tell normal people in everyday life and on the internet, you're privileged because you look a certain way. You're privileged because you have these genitals. You're privileged because this is just like, it's insanity because you don't know that person. You don't know how much that person struggles with this or that or whatever. You have no idea what that person is going through. And you think that you could judge them because you read a book or because you're a feminist and somebody told you that this theory makes sense. It's hurtful, it's mean, it's abusive, it's all those things. I just think we really shouldn't judge each other. We should be very, nice to each other, kind to everyone, and don't judge. But write your books if you want,
I think it comes from a survival instinct in caveman brain that we have where we start categorizing based on our experiences. And I think it really takes thinking deeper to be able to break away from that instinctual thing to say, this person looked like this and hurt me, therefore anyone who looks like this, or this person was this and did this bad thing, so anyone who is like that. I think that back in, like I said, the ancient days, that made sense.
It gives,
but
it
in
opens.
this day and age, it really doesn't, and we should be evolved from that and thinking deeper and seeing that everyone has their own experience and everyone's going to be very different. And I've always used to say, I don't care how you vote or who you are, what you look like. As long as you're nice to me, I'm going to be nice to you. We could disagree on every other level, but as long as we can shake hands, we're good people.
Right.
And at the point that you're so against, and I'm not saying I'm saintly and better, and I don't do that. I have my own biases that I have to pay attention to and work towards due to my own background. But I try to remember that, we are such complex humans. There's so much that happens in our development, and even so much as being raised in a different house, in a different culture, in a different society, in a different language barrier, whatever. It's all going to add different shapes to what make us. We're all going to be
and
built.
There's so many intersections, as they say. I mean, it's not just going to be race, gender, sexuality. Those are like 3 of them. And are you going to tell me that you are going to consider the hundreds of intersectionals that make up a human? I mean, there's so much, you can't consider those things because you can't know those things about a person unless you get to know them. You understand?
Exactly. And that's why I think it is important to find common ground with people, even people you don't agree with. If you can find some common ground, there's a little more unity there.
Right.
And that is it, because we are such detailed and complex individuals. We're going to have something somewhere. There's not going to be somebody you would disagree with on every single level of everything. Even if it's just, I like the color green and you also like the color green. Now we have something common to talk about. It could be something basic or something really deep. But if you lined up another woman, my age, my height, brown hair, glasses, raised in this kind of family and we stood side by side, we'd still have differences. Nobody is a carbon copy of another. And I think that's where things get dangerous, not just in feminism, but a lot of the isms that are out there now. Is It's almost there has to be a hive mentality or you're not accepted.
I agree.
There's not a diversity of thought.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying women against feminism, how we have that. It is not an ideology. It is not such a group where anybody is going to tell somebody how to think. I just want to know how women think. I don't want to know, we cannot, this hive mind, as you say, oh, you have to, no. You are an individual. You will have your thoughts however you analyze the world, and that should be accepted by, you don't need to belong to groups, really, this may cut off.
Yeah, I mean, I get why we do, because as humans, we're looking for companionship and community. But sometimes I notice that too, is when you get into the more toxic movements, they are people who were abandoned and really don't have groups that they belong to. And they finally found somewhere that accepts them in. So they're willing to.
That's true. And I also face that.
Talking points.
Right. And I also face that personally, because I am somebody who is not religious, yet I am traditional. So it's a really difficult, I don't know where I fit, because I have a lot of traditional in me, but I have a lot of liberal in me. So okay.
And that's perfectly fine, and that's how it is sometimes, and my rabbi used to say, even when you're meeting atheists, just tell them, I hope you're the best atheist you can be.
Right.
It doesn't have to be about us I don't have to force my ideas on somebody, and they don't have to try to change me.
Yeah.
As long as you're a decent person and you're not bringing harm into the world, it's all good. At least that's how I was raised. I mean, I was pretty liberal myself up till things got a little crazy around 2014 and on.
Me too. I'm very liberal in truth, but then I get upset with the liberals because they don't care about the traditionals. They just don't care, and it's just like, can y'all just be nicer to the big groups?
Yeah.
Be nicer,
I feel like I haven't changed, just the window has changed, and now I find myself on the right without even changing an opinion.
Right, me too.
And unfortunately, that's gotten me turned on by a lot of people too. I lost long-time friendships over just saying things I've always said.
Right.
But now for some
I support LGBTQ and everything like this. I support all those different things. I support diversity. I strongly believe in diversity and everything. It's just that I don't support being mean to majority groups. I don't support trying to punish people for stuff that happened before they were born. I don't.
I sure appreciate that, because there's a lot of people who don't have that mindset. And I try to explain too that the group think doesn't benefit anybody. I am much more benefited in my life because I have friends from one spectrum to the other.
This is gonna cut off, but I can send you a new link to rejoin if possible. Because So the next question is, who do you think has it harder in society, men or women?
I don't think that's a question you can answer in one sit down.
Yeah. Okay.
And I also don't think it's a fair question, because we both have our hardships. Again, the human condition.
Right.
We were made to work. We were made to have, effort put in. We were made to have things that go our way and don't go our way. And I really don't think there's one over the other. Like I said, currently, because the pendulum likes to swing, currently it's in favor of women, that they have it easier overall. But that's not going to last much longer. You see these men now, and you were talking about the manosphere earlier, like you see them
I know.
They're getting fed up and actually getting aggressive, and then women are saying, where are all the good men? I can't find a date. And even if they're good women, they're having trouble finding dates just because it's already perceived that they're Western women. They're going to have a bad attitude. They're going to have masculine attributes. They're going to not want a family. They're going to want to cheat, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like it's only a matter of time before it starts swinging against us again, because that's what happens when you get the power and you abuse it,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Okay. What do you think are the main issues that face men today?
Oh, definitely the family courts. If I could just pinpoint one, that would be a huge one. Because a lot of the ones people talk about, I don't see it changing anytime soon. Like, they're higher risk of being attacked or in public, or, if there's going to be a violent crime, it's going to be committed against. And I don't see that changing. That's been throughout history. Is it unfortunate? Yes. Is it a way that they have a disadvantage? Absolutely. But there are things we could change, like just automatically assuming the woman is going to be the better caretaker for the children. I've seen men lose custody of their kids to a woman who just completely abused her power or told lies, told completely, oh, he was abusive, he was this, he was that, just because they want to get money and they want them to see the kids as little as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really horrible. I've known men who have killed themselves because the loss of their child was so great. People think almost stereotypically that the man's probably like, oh, thank goodness I'll have to take care of that kid, not my problem. But that's very rarely the case. Men are actually a lot more emotionally invested in their children than society gives them credit for.
Right, yeah.
And losing access to their children is just, horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, everyone jumps to society's painted picture of, well, what if the man was abusive? Well, what if he was cheating? Well, what if?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, does that exist? Yes. Is that the case every time? No. More often than not,
and what if the woman, it could go both
power,
ways, right? And it can go both
Right?
ways. What if the woman
Yeah.
wasn't good? Who knows? It's
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've seen it where the woman was the one doing drugs, was the one cheating, and they still got custody of the kids, and it's just ridiculous. And the way they weaponize it too. Oh, you have a new girlfriend and you've moved on from me. Well, I'm going to punish you. You're not going to see my kids. I just wish. Unfortunately, I don't think that divorce is going to go down anytime soon. I wish people would stay together, but if they can't stay together, I wish they'd learn to co-parent better. And not especially. I notice women just really abuse their power in that situation. And it's almost like they're out to hurt the man, using the child as the weapon. And I think that's one of the main issues that really needs to be talked about more. I mean, there are a lot more, and I'm not a man, so I'm not well versed enough to speak on it, but that's the one I've just seen devastate people in my own life, and people I've seen, and then complete strangers where they're telling their stories, and also believing more men when they come forward, hey, a woman attacked me, she hurt me, she abuses me, whatever. I feel like a lot of times it's either brushed under the rug, or you let a woman beat you up, what's wrong with you? Or it's just, they're shamed, not just by other men, but by women, or they're called liars. And that's a big thing I think needs work. But I'm not sure the right way to go about fixing that, because we all saw what the Me Too movement did and how disastrous that is. So, hashtag Men Too should be a thing, but I'm not sure the right way to fix these problems. I just know that I'm very supportive of the men who are going through it, and I see the tides are finally changing, and slowly but surely with divorce court. It's not perfect. It still leans heavily towards women, but here recently I've been hearing more and more stories about men being able to get access to their kids and getting a fair shake, and that's very heartwarming to me, because I feel like, again, men are very vital to children's upbringing, so definitely a lot more work needs to be done in that department, but it's good to see things starting to shift and starting to change.
Okay. Do you think men should have reproductive rights? The option to opt out. If women are able to get abortion, do you think men should have that option?
Absolutely. I think as long as it's within legal time period for a woman to abort, a man should have the same right to opt out. But unfortunately, that's not even a perfect solution, because a lot of women will hide their pregnancy, not say anything. The man didn't even know until suddenly he's getting served, papers or a DNA test. So there's not a good solution for that, but I definitely think that is a step in the right direction. Personally, for me, I am not very pro-abortion. I know there's times where it's necessary medically, or where it's incest, rape, what have you, where it's, for the greater good, or an evil, a necessary evil, sorry. I don't quite agree with that on a personal level, but I don't think it's my place to tell people what to do with themselves either. Like, do I like it? No. Am I happy there's places they want to do it up till the 9th month? Absolutely not. But I do think as long as it's legal for a woman to, a man should be able to. He has no rights. Once he gets her pregnant, she can abort without his permission. She can give it up to adoption without his permission. She could decide to keep it even if he doesn't want it. It's like, once that happens, they lose all rights. And the common talking point is, well, he should have kept it in his pants. Well, she should have too. What's your point? It takes two to tango.
Right. Yeah, it's a complicated thing. Do you know anyone who has experienced anything that made you think about feminist or feminism in society? Or do you have any stories like this? Or
well, like I said, one of the first wake ups I had was in 6th grade, and my mom had always raised me saying all men are dogs. I was like, well, what about my brother? What about my dad? Oh, he used to be till I married him. So I got caught saying that at school once, just repeating my mom. Kids parrot their parents. And my teacher called me out and had me stand up there, and he wrote it down like a quote, because we always did famous people's quotes, and we'd have to research the person and talk about what the quote meant. So he put me on the board and put me on blast in front of everybody. And then when everyone was talking about, my father, my uncle, my this, my that, why should we hate them, and, blah, 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 it kind of was my first, wake-up moment of, you're right, I've been saying this for a while, and not even just for laugh's sake, and not thinking about the impact it has on the men around me. Or like, there's things that I grew up thinking was permissible that really wasn't. Like, I remember going out to the club and getting really drunk, wasted, whatever, and I'd run over, slap a guy's butt, and nobody'd ever yell at me because I'm a woman, and back when I was younger and prettier, it was like, they almost saw it as a compliment. But looking back, it's like, women wouldn't appreciate that. The man would be in jail. He went up and grabbed her butt, or was molesting her in public, and I'd hug people without their permission. And it's like, oh, I'm a woman, it's okay. But as I got older, I started thinking about, I'm like, no, that's not okay. And what made me think it was, and like really just reflecting and examining some of the things I was doing or saying without even any thought about it, and thinking, how would I like it if it was done to me? How would I feel, if I saw it done to another woman? And those were really just moments that I noticed, problems. I've also experienced firsthand watching women lie about being sexually assaulted, and then seeing bad things happen to these men that they're lying about, and then they come out later and admit they were lying. And I'm talking about people in my own life. I mean, you see it on the news too, but there was a girl at our college, and me and another friend were jokingly saying, my life is worse than yours because, and I mentioned like, well, my father went through a bout of alcoholism that was hard on my life. And then he'd mentioned something like, I think his father was a cross-dresser back when that wasn't popular. So he mentioned that. We went back and forth, but it was all in good fun, humor, kind of a, dark humor. And then this girl said, wow, I feel like I don't have anything to add to this list. I've had a pretty good life. And we were all laughing about it. She comes in the next day crying and says, oh my God, I was at the bus stop and this man pulled me into his car and did these things to me and then dumped me off. And she's like crying and sobbing, and everyone's running over and consoling her, and all this is going on. And in my head, I'm going, I hate to say this, but I don't believe you, because you've changed your story 3 times. Who would abduct somebody in broad daylight, then bring them right back to where they abducted them in the middle of the day with witnesses? Like, it wasn't adding up. And then she changed her story like 3 or 4 times while retelling it. And I remember the other people around me getting so angry with me because I didn't believe her, and I was calling BS. Well, the campus called the police, and then she had to admit, because she didn't want a big, problem with the police.
Yeah.
She had to admit that it wasn't true. And then everyone was like shocked and angry at her, but nobody came and apologized to me for attacking me for saying like, I don't believe this, because the math is a math thing. I'm not saying that doesn't ever happen, but the things didn't add up. And then her mom admitted she had made up other stories in the past to get attention too, and it's like, that's really unfortunate. And there was another case in my high school where a girl broke up with her boyfriend, and then she was mad because he moved on too fast. She told everybody that he had sexually assaulted her. And this is, down the South, where the good old boys don't tolerate that. So a big bunch of men got together, jumped him, and beat him so bad he was in the hospital with broken ribs. And it was all a lie, so those are things I've seen firsthand where I'm like, okay, but the believe all women and that some of the feminist talking points, just they don't make logical sense, and people can actually get hurt from that. False allegations can hurt people and ruin lives, So that's some personal experiences I've seen where it made me think.
Okay. And the last question is, have you ever been called a pick-me girl for your views? And
Absolutely.
What do you think about
Absolutely. I find it really humorous and ironic because, like, I got married at 22 and I was picked pretty early. We got engaged at 19. All of our friends said we were nuts, and we had like a really long engagement, and then we got married early. And it's like, I think about it though, even though my mom raised me very feminist, and I'm still working on, trying to soften up parts of me, I think a part of me always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and wanted to have these things, but was like scared to want them. And so I think those attributes, compared to some of the women around me at the time in my dating pool, are why I got picked. So when they're saying, oh, you're a pick-me, it's like, well, yeah, when you have a pleasant attitude towards men,
You get
You're
picked.
going to be picked. I call them skip me's.
Okay.
Because
that's a good
a
one.
lot of them are just so toxic.
I
It's
should
like skip
start
past.
to reply that. I will use that one day.
I
They say
can't
you're
take credit
pick
for it
me.
though. There's a good gentleman in one of my red pill groups who I saw use that, and I just ran with it because it's so perfectly.
Yeah, I get called a pick me girl sometimes. I say, okay, I'm a pick me. You're a skip me.
Yeah, because and that's what I said. I'd rather be picked than be picked over and left behind. And not in a way of I just accept anything, because that's how they take it.
But I mean, everybody
accept
wants
any kind
to be
of bad
picked.
treatment.
No, but humans want to be picked in general. Okay, women, the fact that you want someone is a normal thing. Why are we shaming that? If a guy wants a girl and a girl wants a guy, this is like a basic part of humanity.
Exactly. And like I said, it's comical to me because it's always the people that seem on their third relationship or have all these children by men that don't talk to them anymore, or they've gotten older and now they're collecting their cats, whatever. It's always the miserable ones that seem to come out and use that insult, and it's like, here I am. I'm very blessed. I have a marriage that's lasted this long, and like I said, it's not been perfect, but we're happy. We love each other, and we have these two wonderful, healthy children that we're raising together. And when I start looking at all the things I've accomplished in my life, and I think they'd say, well, those aren't accomplishments. I really feel they are. I may not be accomplished in the way that I have a great career, or I'm famous, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I have loads of money, but you know what? I'm accomplished in the way that I have good, successful children and a good, successful home, and that feels like a huge accomplishment in my book, because it's not an easy task. I think people mistake that, stay-at-home moms, they just sit around all day, they do a little bit of cleaning and that's it, and they don't have to do anything, and they're lazy. And it's like, no, if you're doing it correctly, it's a full-time job. You don't get days off. You work and work.
Right.
You feed the family, you keep the house clean, you take care of the kids.
And you can put more effort into your kids. I mean, there's math. This takes away, this time taken away from, it's time taken away from your family and kids. And I think that there must be value to that. At least there was value to that, to me as a child. I had a stay-at-home mom, and I value that. I value all the time she spent with us. I value that she was always there after school, that I never ever had to be wondering where my mother was, or without a mother, or without, and I feel like that's something basic that I would like to give to my kids, and I can't see how that should be demonized, or why I should have to, change that, or why people are out there trying to march for my rights, or trying to break down barriers so that I could give that up. I mean, other people, if you want to give it up, fine, but I'm just saying not every woman needs to give that up, and that has value to some people. Okay, whether some men, some women value that, and should be okay, to have a parent at home and to have someone there for the children, and it should be counted as something of value that makes sense.
I grew up with two parents in the military, so they were like, one would be deployed, the other one would be at home, stationed at home, and then vice versa, and we switched out a lot. And I really do think my mom did the best she could with what she knew, because I was saying feminists seem to be a lot of hurt people. I think she was a very hurt person, and she really thought she was teaching me something to protect me and give me the best chance in society and in life. And I can't say it was all awful, she was bad. She really did her best, but it was hard not always having my mom there, or not always having my dad there, and the switch offs and the moves and the uprooting. It did a lot of damage, and I really think that if she had been able to stay home with us and take care of us and really dedicate her time to us, maybe it would have turned out differently on how we turned out. And it was a struggle for her because my brother's autistic, so she also had that struggle going on, so I didn't get a lot of her time or attention. And I just remember thinking, when I have kids, I'm going to make sure that they never second guess if they're wanted or loved. And I know she loves me now that I'm older, but as a kid, you don't understand those things. You don't understand why they're gone all the time, why they're working so hard. And it can really take a toll psychologically. I'm still working on that, in my own time, is making peace with that aspect of my life, and then also making sure that I learn from that and really be the parent, the mom, and provide the father, in my case, my husband, that my children need to have, that they're, well versed on how to navigate the world, and they're not ever left just wondering, you know. So and I understand sometimes it's unavoidable, but I think that's really a driving force of what made me want to stay home with them, is because I experienced firsthand how hard it is to be missing a parent at any given time. It's a struggle on the parent and the child, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, those are all of the questions. Oh, one last question. If you have to sum up your views, like what you feel about feminism in general, how would you sum that up? You know, like what would be your core views on it?
At this point, it feels obsolete. That's my views on it. It feels completely obsolete. We have all the rights. Everything if you ask, what rights do we not have? They start bringing up privileges, not rights. Like, oh, I can't walk down the street in the middle of the night and feel safe. Well, name one person who can. You know, the only equalizer you got there is if you have a firearm. Other than that, you're really not gonna be safe. I mean, and like I said, men are more likely to be victims of violent attacks. So, but they still manage to walk down the street. You know, that's a risk you take with humanity being what it is. Or if they say, I should be believed if I come forward with a story. You know, on the surface level, that sounds virtuous and good, but there's more to it than that, and that's a privilege, not a right. You know, you have the right to own land, you have a right to the home, the vote, to travel. We can drive, we can do anything a man can do for the most part. So at this point, it's like, what are we fighting for anymore? There's no more rights to be won, in my opinion. There's not a thing I can't go out there and do unless it's keeping me back because of financial reasons. And I always say that's the big equalizer among people. You can be any race, religion, sex, gender, blah, blah, blah. You can be any of that. And if you have loads of money, life's going to be easy for you. And if you don't, it's going to be harder. And that's why I've always struggled with the privilege things. It's like there are things that equalize us.
Right. I agree.
Anything I can't do that a man can do, it's literally because I can't finance it.
Yeah.
I'm capable of doing anything legally that a man can do, and really, like I said, more so if you get into the nitpicking, like the fact that we don't have to sign up for a draft to vote, and we don't have to sign up for the voluntary firefighters, you know, etc. So there, in a ways, we're still more privileged than men. If anything, it's like we need to reel it back and help men catch up, you know. But unfortunately, the high and low of it is equality is kind of a myth that we feed people to make them feel better. At any given time, any person can be above or below another person, depending on situation, depending on the context. And I really just don't think there will ever be a time where everyone's 100% equal.
Right.
So we just got to make the best with the cards we're dealt, and do the best we can with what we have. That's been my philosophy anyway, and it's worked pretty well for me.
Okay, good. Okay. I agree, and thank you so much for interviewing. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah. No, thanks. Yeah. Okay, and I will see you around if you're in the group or